Hi there, Allison here with another Cab Franc du jour. Today we are in Chinon and we're looking at the Domaine Dozon 2018 Le Clos du Saut Loup Chinon. The estate was in the hands of the Dozon family for 5 generations prior to being sold in 2013 to Eric Santier. Now the daughter, the 5th generation of the Dozon family, she married a vigneron from Bourgueil, and they weren't able to kind of properly manage both estates in Bourgueil and Chinon, so they decided to sell the Chinon estate. Now Eric, he's originally from Chinon, born and raised, and his first career was in fact in the promotion and marketing of French food products abroad, but he wanted to return to Chinon and get into the wine business, and so he purchased the estate from the Dozon family back in 2013, as I said. Now, the estate itself is 14 hectares, but the Lieu-dit, Le Saut is actually 15 hectares, so all but one belong to Domaine Dozon. Now, we are situated here in the commune of Ligré, which is on the left bank or the south side of the Vienne River. We're set back a ways bit, like 4.5 hectares or so away from the Vienne River. And this site has been regarded as like a premier cru level site in Chinon easily since the 1940s. And we are on a rare south-facing slope here on the left bank of Chinon. And we're also surrounded on all sides by forests. And these forests kind of sort of block out the cold northerly winds, and the resulting sort of site in terms of the forest as well as the south-facing slope actually makes this a rather warm site for Chinon on the left bank. Now, in terms of this wine itself, it's coming from a 7-hectare parcel, so there's sort of a plateau towards the top of the slope, and then this wine is coming from the slope itself, 7 hectares in total, and the topsoil here is a combination of clay and sand, and we also have a little bit of sort of flinty pebbles as well, which is known locally as perruche, and then we have the bedrock here is the Upper Turonian yellow tuffeau chalk. The vines are around 40 or so years of age. The vinification is very traditional, destemmed fruit, 3 to 4 week maceration time in vats, and then it saw élevage about 7 to 12 months in a combination of concrete as well as oak food. Now, from a sort of overall kind of tangent on wine and soils, just to kind of bring it home a little bit. I talk often about, sand and silt and rocks and pebbles and gravel and all these things, but what does this actually mean in terms of the finished wine? Well, for me, like if we look at a wine like this is sort of the topsoil here is sort of less than 1 meter deep, so we have a decent amount of topsoil. It's predominantly clay and sand. Now, clay, it holds more moisture, it holds more nutrients, it gives more energy, more power to the vine. And when I taste wines that have come from fruit on clay, for me, it gives a bit more density, a bit more fleshiness, sort of to the overall fruit profile. I get a lot more sort of texture in the mouth. Versus, say, sand, which we think of sand in terms of the lightness of sand granules. For me, sand gives a certain degree of aromatics, a certain degree of levity to wine. Now, of course, all of this is completely subjective, but when I am tasting, these are the sort of things that I keep in the back of my head, that I'm going to get a bit more fleshiness from clay. I'm going to get a bit more aromatics perhaps from sand versus, and then if we think of the topsoil in terms of the depth, the less topsoil we have and the more contact those roots have with the mother rock, we're going to get a lot more leanness, a lot more structure, a lot more tension because of that proximity to the mother rock. So let's get into it. Immediately the nose has this wonderful, beautiful sort of pure, clean fruited note. It's like as if you were just reaching to the tree or the bush and picked the fruit off at perfect ripeness. Getting a nice combination of sort of red fruits as well as blue fruits, like sort of raspberry, a bit of wild blueberry here, a bit of cherry. Pyrazines are sort of dialed way back. It's definitely more fruit forward on the nose, but there's this beautiful kind of sort of zippy, like savory herb thing going on, a little bit of forest flora, maybe even a bit of cedar. And there's a lovely sort of a floral element to this wine as well. Sort of beautiful kind of rose petals and violets as well. This wine is so good. The acidity on this is super bright, very lively in the mouth, and it also has a really nice kind of sour cherry kind of thing that's coming through on the palate, which I wasn't quite getting on the nose, but I love that sort of nice little bit of tart fruit on the palate. It kind of balances those fleshier fruits that I was getting on the nose. There's also a really nice spice component to this. a bit of black peppercorn, a bit of green peppercorn as well. And then the tannins, kind of bring it all together. Tannins have a really wonderful velvety texture, a nice chalkiness to the finish, and they balance that fleshiness of the fruit, and they kind of pull it all in a little bit. This wine is so remarkably balanced, and it has this really certain degree of sort of yin and yang going on. Like there's fleshiness, but there's also sort of levity, and there's also this underlying sense that there is some really good terroir under here. This is coming from the 2018 vintage, which was a warm vintage. So the warmth of the vintage is coming through. It is showing a little bit in terms of the forwardness of the wine. But at the same time, I do get this sense that there's some cool stuff underneath here that with a little bit of time, a couple of years, that baby fat will be shed, and then we're really going to see sort of how that terroir kind of expresses itself. Now, for this wine, I mentioned that it's really delicious. I've had this bottle of wine many times in the last few months. I've tasted, I don't know how many Cab Francs so far this year, and this is definitely, this is up there. This is in my top 10, I would think, for this year so far. It's a really just delicious. It does everything that I want in a great bottle of Cab Franc. There's savoriness, there's freshness, there's flesh, there's sort of intrigue and complexity as well. It just hits all the right buttons for me. And it's a great price too. This retails somewhere in that $20 to $25 range, so it's excellent value, I think, for the quality. If you've had it before, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And of course, as always, I will be back again soon with another wine. Cheers.